My name is Michael Carter. I'm 31, and I used to believe in family. I was raised in a picture-perfect house in Denver. Fresh-cut lawn, white fence, parents who smiled for photos, but never really looked at me. My father, Gregory, ran a real estate firm. My mother, Evelyn, managed the home and the family image. And my older brother, Daniel. Daniel was the golden child. Ivy League. Six-figure job before 30. The type who made you feel small just by breathing in the same room. I didn't hate him. I just hated what I became next to him. I was the quiet one, the artist, the dreamer. I studied film, wrote screenplays, and made indie projects with borrowed cameras and favors from strangers. My parents called it cute until I turned 28. Then they called it irresponsible. But one person always made me feel like I mattered. Her name was Jenna. We met at a local film festival. She was volunteering. I was screening a short that bombed. She still said it made her cry. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Jenna was grounded, kind, beautiful in a way that made you want to write poetry you couldn't read out loud. She worked in PR, stable, sensible, the kind of person my parents would approve of if I were Daniel. But she loved me. She saw things in me I couldn't. For 2 years, she was my peace. We made it work through the rejections, the broke months, the failed pilots. One day you'll write something big, she'd whisper, and I'll be right there when you do. I brought her home for Thanksgiving the year everything started to fall apart. She wore this soft cream sweater, hair tied back, nervous as hell. They'll love you, I said. I lied. My parents greeted her politely, but I saw the quick glances they exchanged when she said where she worked. When she asked about my latest script, my mother smiled tightly and changed the subject. Daniel, of course, charmed her instantly. He poured wine, told stories about high-profile clients and international trips. Jenna laughed. I died a little. I knew that laugh. It wasn't fake. She admired success. Who doesn't? After dinner, I stepped out to take a call from a producer who was ghosting me. I came back in and heard voices in the kitchen. I should have kept walking. My mother, you're a lovely girl, Jenna. Honestly, you deserve someone who can give you stability. Then silence. Then her voice. Michael has potential, but Daniel has certainty. I stood there invisible again, listening to my own story being rewritten without me. When I looked at Jenna later, she smiled. But something was different. It was in her eyes. Doubt. A seed planted in front of the dishwasher. The following weeks were strange. She grew distant, not hostile, just tired. She stopped asking about my writing. She talked more about work. Daniel said this, or Daniel suggested that. I told myself it was nothing, until I saw them together. A Thursday night, I'd planned to surprise her with tickets to an underground film screening. I walked by a wine bar we'd been to on our first date, and there they were. Daniel and Jenna, laughing, leaning close, her hand on his arm. My brother, my girlfriend. I didn't go in. I didn't scream or cry. I went home, turned off my phone, and stared at my laptop screen until morning. She confessed 2 days later, said she didn't plan it, said it just happened. That I was too focused on chasing a dream, and Daniel understood the real world. I asked if she loved him. She didn't answer. That was my answer. My parents called it inevitable, said I needed to grow up. Daniel's just a better match, sweetheart, my mom told me, like she was explaining dinner plans. That week I packed everything and left Denver. No goodbye, just silence. I moved to New York with $3,000, a worn backpack, and a heart like a graveyard. I slept on couches, took freelance editing gigs. Some nights I didn't eat. Others I drank until I forgot how much it hurt to be forgotten. But pain does something. It either breaks you or it makes you dangerous. I wrote like a man possessed. Scripts, stories, scenes born out of betrayal and grief. A producer found one of my short screenplays online. Said it felt real. It was. 6 months later, my script became a mini-series on a streaming platform. It wasn't a hit, but it was real. And mine. 2 years passed. My name started to circle in the industry. Not famous, but respected. I had an agent, a new place in Brooklyn, and one night at a private film gala, I met Claire. She was different, sharp-witted, sarcastic, and terrifyingly brilliant. A cinematographer with credits that made my imposter syndrome scream. She'd read my script, said it made her cry. "Don't do that," I said. "It's always a bad sign." She laughed, and I swear that laugh healed something. We worked together, then we lived together. And then, one cold December night, I asked her to marry me on a subway platform between trains. She said yes. Our wedding would be in New York, small, artistic, everything we loved. And for the first time in years, I felt whole. So I sent the invitations. To my parents, to Daniel, to Jenna. Not to spite them, just to show them what they left behind. When my mom called, I almost didn't answer. Her name lit up my screen like a flare I didn't want to follow. But I picked up. "Michael," she said, careful, rehearsed. "We got your invitation." Silence, then. "We'll be there. All of us." I didn't ask who all included. I already knew. Daniel, Jenna, my replacement family. Claire knew the story. Every broken piece. She'd heard it late at night while we shared wine and battle scars. She didn't ask me to cancel the invitation. She just said, "You sure you're ready to see them?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. "Let them see me," I said. "Really see me." Claire smiled, kissed my hand. "Then let's give them a show." The venue was an old restored library in Brooklyn. Tall windows, creaky wooden floors, candlelight reflecting off vintage books. It was Claire's dream, and now mine too. The night before, we stayed up finalizing the playlist, sipping tea and talking about how far we'd come. "This life," she whispered, "we made it from nothing." And I thought about it, about the boy who'd once slept on a friend's futon, surrounded by rejection letters and grief. That boy had vanished. What stood now was a man, scarred, but standing. The day of the wedding, I stood near the entrance in a fitted black suit, watching as guests arrived. Friends from New York, people from the industry. The producers who once ignored me now shook my hand like old allies. I smiled, thanked them, moved on. Then I saw them. My mother, hair in a tight bun, pearls gleaming like armor. My father beside her, stiff in a gray suit. Daniel, taller, broader, the same smug confidence. And Jenna, dressed in deep green, elegant as always, but not radiant. Her eyes searched the room before they landed on me. She froze. Claire walked up then, stunning in a simple white dress, her dark curls loose, her presence electric. The room seemed to bend around her. She slid her hand into mine and kissed my cheek. I looked over Jenna's shoulder and saw it, my parents' expressions cracking. My mother's lips parted just slightly. My father blinked like he didn't recognize the scene. Daniel, he clenched his jaw. Claire turned to them with a smile so graceful it sliced. "You must be Michael's family," she said, extending her hand. My mom hesitated, then shook it. "You're lovely." Claire nodded. "Thank you. Michael's told me a lot." And somehow that sounded more dangerous than it should have. Dinner passed with awkward civility. Toasts, laughs. But I noticed the way Jenna kept glancing across the room. Not at me, at Claire, studying her, trying to place her. She wouldn't figure it out until later. Claire's name wasn't Carter, and the press hadn't covered our relationship much, but they'd find out. Everyone would. Later, during a quiet moment before our first dance, I saw Daniel approach the open bar. Alone, I followed. "Didn't expect this," he muttered, not looking at me. "Yeah," I replied. "It's real. Took a while to build." Daniel sipped his drink. "She's, impressive." "She's everything," I said, and I meant it. "You seem tired," I added. He flinched. "A lot on my plate." "Sure none," I said, letting the silence speak. We danced, we celebrated. Claire shined like a spotlight, stealing everyone's breath. I caught Jenna watching us during the final toast. Her glass untouched, her posture too stiff. And for a moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. That night after the guests left and the last candles burned low, Claire and I sat on the balcony of our loft, overlooking the skyline. "They didn't say much," she said. "Didn't have to," I replied. "They saw it. That's enough." Claire turned to me, eyes gleaming. "You're not him anymore, Michael." I nodded. "I know. And if you're still listening, and you've ever been told you're not enough. Just remember, you don't need their permission to succeed. You just need to start. If that story speaks to you, consider subscribing. There's more where this came from. We kissed under the New York sky, stars drowned in city glow. Somewhere in a silent Denver house, someone was replaying the night in their mind, asking themselves how they let it all go, how they let me go. They'd learn the rest soon, because this story wasn't over. The next morning before the sun rose over Manhattan, it began, subtle, surgical. Claire and I sat in our kitchen, her sipping coffee, me reviewing a script draft, when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, smiled faintly. "They're digging," she said. "Let them." A small arts blog published a feature that day, From Shadows to Spotlight, the visionary behind Carter's rise. It wasn't an attack, just truth. Claire's past, her early projects, her production work, her collaborations with my scripts, her role in everything I'd built, and one paragraph, just one, mentioned her former job, a PR consultant at the firm where Jenna worked. 3 years ago, long before Claire and I met again, but not before she'd met Jenna, or Daniel, or my mother. My mother had once told Claire, then just that assistant girl bringing coffee, that she should learn to blend in. Jenna had dismissed her at a meeting for being too bold. Daniel had barely remembered her name. They remembered now. By noon, I received a text from my mother. "Can we talk?" I ignored it. The next day, an industry newsletter ran a follow-up piece. Michael Carter's creative partner is the PR visionary his ex-fiancée once undermined. It wasn't written to humiliate, but the internet doesn't care about tone. The comment sections erupted. Screenshots of Jenna's wedding photos, speculation, names were connected, and the timeline wasn't kind. Suddenly, Jenna was the woman who left the struggling writer for his successful brother, only to attend the wedding of the man she'd called a risk, now marrying the woman she once belittled. But the real knife came 3 days later. Claire released her new documentary. She'd been working on it for 2 years, under wraps, under a pseudonym. It was called Exit Strategy, a searing, intimate look at how corporate power silences voices in the arts. Names weren't mentioned, but the storylines were unmistakable. A young woman in PR, a family with legacy, a brother favored, a betrayal dressed as advice, and then redemption, through love, through rage, through art. The film premiered on an indie streaming platform and went viral in 48 hours. My inbox exploded. Claire's phone never stopped buzzing. Industry friends texted us things like, "Holy shitey, they didn't see that coming." Jenna, silent. Daniel, unreachable. My parents, still trying to act like nothing had changed. I got a call from my father that Sunday. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. "Michael, this is your father. Your little project is causing a mess. I think it's time we—" I deleted the rest. Little project, huh? That little project was now being optioned by major platforms. Meanwhile, Claire and I just kept working, undisturbed, unapologetic. It wasn't about revenge, not directly. It was about the reckoning. People ask me in interviews, "Was Exit Strategy inspired by your life?" I always said, not entirely, but I recognized the pain. That was enough. Jenna finally reached out 2 weeks later. An email. Subject: "Can we meet?" No greeting, just a few sentences. I didn't know. I didn't understand. I think I made a mistake. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a full 5 minutes. Claire walked in, saw the email, read it silently and said, "Want me to answer for you?" I shook my head. "No need." I wrote back, "You made your choice. This is ours. Good luck with yours." She never replied. Meanwhile, Daniel's company, once thriving, faced a massive client pullout. Some claimed it had nothing to do with the documentary. Others said investors lost confidence in the leadership. My mother called again. I picked up this time. She sounded small. "Michael," she whispered. "I didn't realize Claire was human," I asked. "Talented?" Silence. Then, You've changed. No, I said. You just never saw me. I hung up. Later that night, Claire and I sat by the window watching the city blink below. You think they regret it? She asked. Regret's not loud, I said. But it echoes. She leaned into me, warm, powerful. They burned the bridge, and I built a castle from the ashes. The next morning we got the call. Claire's documentary had been nominated for a major award. Suddenly we weren't just artists. We were a force. And the ones who once dismissed us, they were in hiding. It was mid-September when Daniel showed up in New York. No call, no warning, just a knock on our loft door. I opened it and there he stood. Creased suit, unshaved jawline, eyes dulled by sleepless nights. For a second he looked like a stranger wearing my brother's face. I need to talk, he said. Claire was in the kitchen, headphones on, editing footage. I nodded and stepped outside with him. We walked in silence until we reached the end of the block. Then he stopped, hands buried in his coat pockets. Everything's falling apart, he said, voice low. The firm, investors bailed. The board's talking about replacing me. I didn't respond, just waited. He looked at me, really looked at me. I made mistakes. I didn't mean to hurt you. Didn't mean to, I repeated. I thought I was helping her, he muttered. Jenna. She was confused. You were floundering. You just took everything, I said quietly. Because you could. He blinked, guilt flooding in like water through a cracked dam. I don't want your pity, he said. I need help. A connection. A story to clean things up. Maybe Claire could. I laughed, honest, bitter laughter. You want Claire to fix your life? I said. The same Claire Mom told wasn't classy enough to work with you? He looked away. Daniel, I said, stepping closer. You're standing in front of the man you stepped on to climb. Now you're falling, and you want the elevator back. I didn't come here to beg, he said, straightening. Yes, you did. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. You didn't just steal a girlfriend, Daniel. You helped break a man. You stood by while our parents dismantled me. And now you want me to throw you a rope? The man who watched me drown? He said nothing. I leaned in. You're finished here, Daniel. I handed him a flash drive. Everything you did? All the emails? All the deal? I kept copies. You'll be in the press by Friday. His mouth dropped open. You're bluffing? I smiled. Try me. He took the flash and left. No more words, no more excuses. When I got home, Claire was still editing. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, sitting beside her. I'm done waiting for closure. We spent the evening finalizing her speech for the awards, but in my mind something shifted. A weight lifted. For the first time in years, I felt air in my lungs again. Clean air. My own. Jenna sent one last message that week. Daniel's leaving. He blames you. My life is chaos. I'm sorry, Michael, for all of it. I miss who we were. I didn't answer. I didn't even feel anything. Some stories don't deserve sequels. The week Claire won her award, the story hit every major outlet. An expose, not ours but triggered by our wake. It detailed Daniel's firm, the misappropriated funds, the backdoor deals. His face on every news site, his name trending for all the wrong reasons. And my parents? Silent. That silence was the most honest thing they'd ever given me. If you've ever been told you won't make it, if they replaced you, erased you, broke you, know this. You're not done. You're just getting started. If stories like this hit home, subscribe. I promise you're not alone. Claire and I flew to Italy a week after the award ceremony. A break. A breath. One morning we stood at the edge of Lake Como, the wind soft against her dress, and she said, "He thought he broke you." I nodded. He didn't realize I was just bending. She smiled, took my hand. The empire they built, it was gone, and no one even noticed it fall. When we got back to New York, the dust had already settled. Daniel resigned quietly. Official statements polished with PR fluff spoke of new directions and personal priorities. But the whispers behind closed doors told the real story. His firm dissolved within 6 months. Jenna disappeared from social media. Rumors said she moved back to Portland, alone. My parents never reached out again. No apologies, no explanations. They just vanished from my life. And somehow, that was enough. Claire and I didn't celebrate. We didn't gloat. We just lived. We poured everything into our projects, built a small creative house that produced short films, documentaries, and real stories. Stories the world didn't want to hear until someone shouted them through art. We called the company 10 Frames, a nod to the moment in every film where truth breaks through. Just 10 frames. That's all it takes to change a life. 3 years passed. We got married again. Not the public wedding, just the two of us, in a mountain cabin in Vermont. No cameras, no guests, just vows whispered over candlelight and the sound of rain tapping glass. Sometimes I still walk the city at night, alone. Not out of sadness, but to remember. To remember the version of me they left behind. The version I buried, the version that rose. One evening I got a letter, handwritten, from my mother. Michael, I saw the news. You're doing well. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know, I was wrong. About Claire. About you. Your father passed last month. I didn't know who else to tell. Take care. Mom, I read it once, then again, and then I put it away. Claire never asked what it said. She just touched my hand when she saw my face and whispered, whatever it was, it's done. And she was right. There's no grand revenge speech, no final confrontation, just silence and peace. That's the part no one tells you. Sometimes winning isn't loud. It's waking up in a home you built with someone who believes in you. It's drinking coffee with no fear in your chest. It's creating something honest, something yours, and knowing no one can take it. One morning, I stood in front of a class of young writers at a guest lecture. A student asked, how do you write something powerful when the world doesn't believe in you? I smiled. You write it anyway, and then you make them listen. As the class clapped, I looked down at my notes. At the first script I'd written in that apartment alone, after Jenna left. It was framed now. Not because it was good, but because it was real. Because it survived. That night, Claire and I sat on the rooftop of our building, wine in hand, the city humming beneath us. I used to think success would make the pain disappear, I told her. She looked at me. Did it? I thought about it. No, I said, but it made it matter. She leaned her head on my shoulder. We watched the skyline burn orange with sunset. And somewhere out there, in a condo filled with silence, in a house built on favoritism, someone was wondering how everything slipped through their fingers. They don't know. They'll never know. Because I never raised my voice, never took revenge. I just kept building. Until one day they turned around and realized I'd stolen everything, without saying a word.
My name is Noah West. I served 6 years overseas, left a leg in a place no one in my family can pronounce, and came home thinking the worst was behind me. I was wrong. At Christmas dinner, my father set down his fork, looked across the table and said, "You're a burden. Get out of my house." Everything stopped. Aunt Karen froze mid-sip. Tyler, my younger brother, stared at the table like he could disappear into the wood grain. My mom didn't even blink. She just kept slicing her ham, steady hands, like this was routine. I stayed still. My hand hovered over the gravy bowl, suspended like a glitch. I heard the clock tick. I felt my artificial knee lock under the table. "You heard me," my dad said. "You've been sleeping in that guest room for 6 months like it's a damn shelter. You don't work, you don't help, you just sit around like some moody ghost." I set the spoon down gently. "I'm recovering," I said, calm. No anger, just fact. He leaned back in his chair, snorted. "You were supposed to recover. You didn't. You just stayed." My mom dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "It's not good for the family, Noah. The tension." "Tension?" I laughed once, short. "Sorry if my missing leg's a downer on your holiday." "Don't twist this," my dad said. "You need to grow up, move on. You're not the only one who's been through stuff." That's when I realized this wasn't a slip. It was rehearsed. I looked around the table. Nobody spoke, not my cousins, not my uncle, and not Tyler, the one person who used to have my back when we were kids. His mouth opened, then closed again, empty. I stood, my chair dragged across the floor. The sound scraped through the silence like a blade. "I get it," I said. "You want me gone." "You're not a child," my dad said. "Act like it." I walked out of the dining room without another word. My leg clicked with every step. I passed the fireplace, stocking still hanging. Mine said Noah in red thread. My mother stitched it when I was 6. Upstairs, I packed fast. Not because I was in a rush, because I didn't want to feel anything. My duffel was still under the bed, the same one I took to basic, the same one that came back with me. I threw in jeans, t-shirts, meds, charger, no photos, no souvenirs. Tyler came to the doorway. "Noah, don't." I didn't know he'd say that. You didn't stop him either. I zipped the bag. "What are you gonna do?" I slung it over my shoulder. "Whatever I have to." Outside, the cold slapped me in the face. The snow was heavy, wet, the kind that soaks through your boots fast. I stepped off the porch and didn't look back. The crutch sank into the slush with a dull crunch. Behind me, the house stayed lit. Warm, full of people who didn't speak up when it mattered. If you've ever walked away from people who called themselves family, hit that like button and subscribe. Because this story isn't over, not even close. The bus station was nearly empty. Just a tired woman with a stroller and a guy in a parka eating peanuts like it was his last meal. I bought a one-way ticket with the cash I had in my coat. No idea where I was going, just away. Away from the house, the table, the silence. I sat near the back of the bus, pressed my forehead to the cold window, and watched Christmas lights smear across the glass. My stump ached. The prosthetic had rubbed raw again. I didn't care. I welcomed the pain. It gave me something to feel besides shame. My phone buzzed. Tyler, a message. "Please just let me explain." I turned the phone off. I didn't want apologies. I wanted absence, quiet, distance. The bus rumbled through the night, cutting across snow-lined highways and frozen gas stations. Somewhere past midnight, we stopped at a diner. I didn't eat, just limped inside, used the bathroom, splashed water on my face. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Dark eyes, beard grown out, shoulders hunched like I was bracing for a hit that never came. Back on the bus, I pulled my hood low and tried to sleep. I couldn't. Around 4 a.m., I pulled out the piece of paper I kept in my wallet. An address, handwritten in block letters, Elias West, 325. Rainview Road, my grandfather, my dad's dad. I hadn't seen him in 10 years, not since before my first deployment. He and my dad had a falling out, and suddenly we weren't allowed to visit him anymore. No one talked about it. But I remembered Elias. He used to take me out to the old beehives behind his cabin. Said the bees were smarter than most people. They mind their business, feed their queen, work until they don't need to anymore, and when they sting you, they mean it. At 7, I thought it was cool. At 27, I realized it was a lesson. The driver nudged me awake at the next station. Last stop. I stepped out into a town that felt like the edge of a postcard. Quiet. Pale blue light. Snow that hadn't been disturbed yet. A gas station. A diner. A stretch of road leading into woods. Rainview Road was 3 miles out. I walked. Every step drove the crutch deeper into the snow. My leg burned, then numbed, then burned again. But I kept moving. It was still dark when I saw the cabin. Smoke curled from the chimney. I stopped at the gate, hand on the frozen wood. Then I knocked. It took a moment, then the porch light flicked on. The door opened, and there he was, Elias West, 70-something, gray beard, flannel shirt, eyes still sharp as nails. He looked at me for a long second. Then he stepped aside. "You're cold," he said. "Come in." I walked past him into the warmth. The house smelled like cedar and burnt coffee. A fire cracked low in the brick stove. The place hadn't changed. Still the same dark wooden beams, the same old recliner, the same stack of yellowing field journals on the side table. "You're limping," he said. "I lost the leg 3 years ago." He nodded once. I figured. We sat in silence for a while. He didn't ask why I was there. He didn't ask what happened. He just poured me a cup of black coffee and handed it to me. I held it like it was a lifeline. "I got thrown out," I said finally. He didn't look surprised, just nodded again. "I figured," he said. "I didn't know where else to go." "You came to the right place." That was it. No speeches, no pity, no advice, just fire, coffee, and a place to sit that didn't feel like I was in the way. I looked at him. "You still keep bees?" He smiled faintly. "Out back, 40 hives now. The girls are sleeping through winter, but come spring." He trailed off. I set the cup down. "I can help if you want." He leaned back in his chair, looked at me like he was measuring something. Then he said, "We'll start in the morning." And for the first time in a long, long time, I exhaled. The sun broke over the trees in cold gold light. And I stood on the porch, breath thick in the air, my crutch leaning against the railing. The snow behind the cabin stretched out to the tree line, quiet and undisturbed, except for the narrow path Elias had shoveled yesterday. It led to a line of wooden boxes, barely visible under snow covers. The hives, he was already out there, no coat, just flannel and boots, moving slow but steady. The man didn't walk, he flowed. I followed, every step jarring through my thigh and into the metal that now held me upright. He didn't say, "Good morning," just pointed at a pair of gloves hanging from a post. "We don't bother them in winter," he said, "but you still check. Airflow, moisture, listen for hum." I nodded like I understood. We moved from box to box. I watched him place a stethoscope against the side of each hive. He closed his eyes and listened. He handed it to me. "Go on." I pressed it to the side of the first box. For a second, nothing. Then, low and deep, like a whisper in the dark, the hum of life. Thousands of bees huddled together in warmth, vibrating their wings to keep the queen alive. I pulled the stethoscope away. "They're alive," I said. He looked at me. "They know how to survive, they just need space and time." We worked in silence. It wasn't awkward, it was clean. The kind of quiet that doesn't demand anything from you. After we checked the last box, we sat on 2 overturned crates near the shed. He lit a pipe, didn't offer me one, just puffed, slow. "So," he said finally, "want to tell me why you really showed up?" I looked down at my hands. The knuckles still cracked from the dry air. One of my fingers barely bent all the way anymore. Nerve damage. I told him everything. The dinner, the words, the silence, my mother's clean disapproval, Tyler's hesitation, the walkout, the bus, the snow. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he tapped his pipe on the crate and looked at me. "You expected them to love you for surviving," he said. "But they don't know what surviving costs." I didn't respond. He leaned back. "People like your father, they measure worth in motion. If you're not moving, earning, producing, you're a weight to them, a threat to the system. I lost a leg for them. I know. I gave them everything I had." He nodded slowly. "And that's why they can't look at you now, because you remind them what they never gave back. The wind picked up. Cold whipped across the clearing. I didn't flinch. Later that day, we cracked open a honey jar from last fall. He gave me a spoonful, thick, golden, sharp on the tongue. Nothing like store-bought. "I bottle truth," he said. "Real honey stings, like the good kind of memory." That night, I sat by the fire and stared into the flames. My phone stayed off. My body hurt, my knee, my shoulder, my pride, but something else was settling, not peace, not yet. Stillness, like the hum of a hive, buried under snow, waiting for spring. The nightmares didn't wait long. They came the third night, not with gunfire or explosions. Those stopped years ago. What came now was quieter, more brutal. A hallway, a door. My father's voice over and over. "You're a burden. You're a burden. You're a burden." I woke up, drenched in sweat, breath caught in my throat. The cabin was dark except for the fire, glowing low in the stove like an old wound. I sat up slowly, Crutch already beside the bed, like Elias knew this would happen. I gripped it tight and limped out to the main room. He was there, in his chair, awake. "You get those a lot?" he asked, not looking at me. "Sometimes." "You need quiet or you need noise?" Silence. He nodded. I sat in the armchair opposite his. The room creaked with winter. "You ever talk to someone about it?" he asked after a long minute. "Military therapist. He said I was stable." "Are you?" "No." "Good means you're honest." He stood, walked to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of something brown. Whiskey, no ice, no ceremony. He handed me one. "To still being here," he said. I drank. It burned. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Just stared at the fire until it stopped glowing. The next morning, I was outside before he was. The hives stood quiet in their rows. Snow had drifted against the north side of each box. I brushed it off with my gloved hand. Carefully, like I was touching something sacred. That day, we cleaned out the shed, old smoker cans, spare frames, a rusted extractor machine that coughed to life after Elias kicked it twice. At lunch, he made soup, thick, salty, full of whatever was in the pantry. We didn't talk about the night. He didn't ask if I was okay. That was the first kindness. Later, while chopping wood, I felt the cramp. The pain shot up through the prosthetic, across the socket into the bone that wasn't there anymore. I dropped the axe and stumbled. Elias was there in seconds. "Sit." He didn't hover. Just watched while I sat on the porch step, jaw clenched, breath shaking. "Phantom?" I nodded. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small tin, handed it to me. "Menthol and beeswax," he said. "Rub it on. Doesn't fix it, but helps." I did. It did. "You don't ask many questions," I said finally. "I only ask if I need the answer." He pulled out his pipe, lit it with a match, and stared out at the trees. "You think they'll ever call?" I asked. "Do you want them to?" I didn't answer. He puffed once, twice. "You don't need their apology," he said. "You need your own permission. To stop living for their version of you." I looked at the hives. "They ever sting you?" He smirked. "Every season, but it's not personal. It's just protection. Even the smallest creature wants to feel safe." That stuck with me. That night I slept without waking up. No fire, no whiskey, just the deep, dreamless dark of a man finally starting to come back to himself. Spring came slow. The snow melted first in strips, lines of earth peeking through like old scars. Then the ice on the shed roof let go one chunk at a time, thudding into the ground. By March, the air smelled different, like something waiting to be born, and the bees woke up. You could hear it, soft at first, then steady, a low hum across the field, vibrating through the wood. The kind of sound that doesn't ask for attention, but earns it. We started working every day. Elias taught me how to check frames, how to read the combs, how to move with your hands steady and your thoughts slower. Bees, he said, don't like panic. You come at them nervous, they'll sting, not out of hate, out of instinct. That's nature's honesty. I learned quick. My body wasn't the same. I couldn't kneel like before, couldn't carry weight the same way. But I found rhythm, learned when to push and when to stop. One morning, I said I could build a new frame, set up, stack vertical, save space. Elias didn't smile. He just said, then build it. So I did. We drove into town, bought wood and netting. I spent 2 days sketching and cutting and drilling. The result wasn't pretty, but it worked. Saved space, easier to inspect. He nodded once. Not bad. That was his version of praise. At night, I started taking pictures, not of me, of the bees, the combs, the light hitting honey like gold poured from the sky. I posted a few online, thought nothing of it. People noticed. Then I posted a video, me opening a hive, explaining how bees self-regulate heat, showing the queen's slow movement across a fresh frame. It got shared, then reshared. Messages came in. Where can I buy your honey? Do you ship? Your story saved me today. That last one made me stop. I showed Elias the account one evening. He watched the video all the way through, then handed the phone back. You want to sell it? He asked. Could try. We need better jars. He stood up, walked into the back room, and came out with a crate of old mason jars. Labels yours to design. That week we printed stickers, West Apiary Raw, local, honest. We sold out the first 2 batches. The next month we doubled production. By summer we were shipping statewide. I didn't tell my family, I didn't send them a link. I didn't need to, because this wasn't revenge. It was proof that I could build something from the ground up, that I didn't need a place at their table, I could make my own, and it tasted better with honey. They showed up in July. I was in the shed boxing orders. Sweat down my back, a jar in each hand, label roll stuck to my shirt. I heard the tires on gravel before I saw the car. SUV, too clean for this road. Elias stepped outside first. He didn't say anything, just stood there, arms crossed, watching the door open. My father got out, then my mother. They looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was just finally standing still. I came out, wiped my hands on a rag. The heat made everything sharper. Their clothes looked too pressed, too tidy, out of place among the dust and honey and sunburnt wood. Noah, my mom said. I didn't speak. She smiled, like this was a pleasant visit. We saw the website. A co-worker forwarded it. My father stood behind her, hands in his pockets, mouth tight. You've done well, he said. It sounded like a question. I nodded once. I know. There was a pause. Then my mom stepped forward. We just wanted to talk, to see how you've been, maybe reconnect. Elias let out a short breath. It almost sounded like a laugh. You kicked me out on Christmas, I said. Remember that? Her smile faltered. That's not fair. It's exactly fair. We didn't mean yes, I said. You did. My father shifted his stance. We were under stress. You weren't contributing. It was a hard time. You think this was easy for me? I asked. You think I came home whole? He looked at Elias. Could we talk in private? Elias didn't move. You're on my land. You speak where I say. They stood there, 2 people dressed for a brunch they weren't invited to. You called me a burden, I said, and then you moved on. You thought I'd crawl back when I had something to show for myself. Noah, we're trying. No, you're circling the hive because you think the honey's worth it now. My mom's eyes filled with tears, not the loud kind, the performance kind. My father stepped in. We're still your family. No, I said. Family doesn't throw you away when you stop producing. Elias spoke up then. You said your piece, now go. My father opened his mouth. Elias raised a hand. I buried my wife on this land. I'll bury whatever dignity you have left if you don't leave. Silence. Then the car doors, then tires on gravel again. I stood there, hands shaking, not from anger, from how much I didn't feel anymore. Elias turned to me. You good? I nodded. Yeah. He walked back inside. I stayed on the porch a little longer, the sun baking into my shoulders, the scent of wildflowers rising from the field. They came looking for control. They left with the truth. And I didn't owe them a damn thing. He came alone. Late August. Bees in full swing. Sun like fire on the back of my neck. I was bottling fresh harvest when I heard the knock on the shed frame. Soft, hesitant. I turned. Tyler, jeans, t-shirt, no suitcase. Just him. Older than I remembered. Or maybe just tired. He held a six-pack of cheap beer like it was an apology. Hey, he said. I didn't answer. Just looked at him. He shifted his weight, scuffed his shoe in the dirt. I should have said something that night, he said. I should have stood up. I went back to sealing jars, let the silence stretch until it felt honest. I didn't know what to do, he said. I capped another lid. You knew what not to do, he nodded. Fair. Elias walked by with a stack of empty supers. He paused just long enough to glance at Tyler, then kept moving. You came a long way, I said finally. He shrugged. I kept seeing the posts, the orders, the name on the label. I figured if you could do all that without us, maybe you didn't need me either. I didn't, he exhaled, but I came anyway. We didn't talk for a while after that. He just sat on the step cracking a beer, watching me work. I let him. It wasn't forgiveness, it was space. The next morning, he was still there. Slept in the truck, apparently. Need help? He asked. I handed him gloves. You know how to build frames? Show me. So I did. We worked in rhythm, not like brothers, not yet, just two men who'd been to the same fire and left with different burns. That week, he fixed the fence, cleaned the old smoker, learned to feed the bees without agitating them. He didn't talk much, just moved steady, reliable, like he wanted to earn each hour. One night, we sat by the fire pit. Elias had gone in, stars above us, whiskey between us. I didn't come to get something, Tyler said. I came because I couldn't carry the silence anymore. I sipped slow. You want a cut of the business? I want a shovel. I want to build. That was the first thing he said that sounded real. By September, we were producing double. Orders from 3 states, then 5. We added new hives, started working on a tasting room. People came out to see us, tour the land, hear the story, not the dramatic version. The quiet one, about healing, about bees, about silence that doesn't hurt. One afternoon, I saw Tyler talking to a woman near the hives. She asked about the queen. He explained with a gentleness I didn't expect. She laughed. He smiled. After she left, he walked over. You ever think we'd end up here? He asked. Not once. He nodded. Me neither. Then he grabbed the smoker and got back to work. Family isn't who you're born to. Sometimes it's who shows up late and stays. The air smelled like honey and pine. October came soft, golden, slow. The hives buzzed low, steady, like a heartbeat beneath the land. Bees moved in and out like clockwork. No panic, no rush, just the rhythm of something built right. We finished the last batch of the season. Jared, labeled, stacked in neat rows inside the new storage shed Tyler helped frame. He carved a small sign to hang above the door. Coleman Honey. Then scratched it out and wrote, West Apiary. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. Elias saw it, said nothing. Just nodded once and walked inside. That night we had dinner by the fire. Elias made stew. Tyler brought bread from town. I poured 2-finger bourbon into 3 chipped mugs. No toasts, no speeches. Just clinking glass and the sound of logs shifting in the pit. I'm updating the website, Tyler said. Adding a page for donations. People keep asking how to support veterans. Don't make it about me, I said. He shook his head. It's not. It's about them. You just happen to be the proof. The next morning, I woke early. Walked out to the field alone. Cold bit at my fingers. Fog crawled low across the grass. I stood in front of the hives and listened. The hum was still there. I pulled my phone out. Opened the inbox, hundreds of unread messages. Some from strangers, some from names I recognized. One was from a woman named Ruth, Alabama. Husband lost his leg last year, said my story got him out of bed. One was from a guy in Nebraska, said he hadn't talked to his brother in 5 years, until he read my post about Tyler. Another from a soldier's mother. Just 2 words. Thank you. I set the phone down and breathed in slow. I wasn't healed, but I wasn't broken either. Later that week, a man from the local paper came by. Wanted to write about the farm, said the story was inspiring, that the whole town was talking. What do you want to say to people? He asked, holding a tiny recorder in one hand. I thought about it. Then I said, you don't need their table. Build your own. Fill it with people who bring peace, not noise. He wrote that down. When the piece came out, it spread, statewide, then national. The orders exploded. We hired 2 veterans from the area, trained them, gave them keys to cabins nearby, started something bigger than jars and labels. We called it the Hive Program. Not a charity, not a story, a second chance. And through all of it, Elias stayed the same. Quiet, present, watching the world come to us without ever needing to raise his voice. One evening, I caught him staring out at the bees, pipe in hand, face unreadable. What are you thinking? I asked. He puffed once. Never thought I'd see a name worth keeping put back on this land. You kept it alive. He looked at me. No, he said, you did. He died that winter, peacefully, in his sleep. No drama, just silence. We buried him on the ridge above the hives. Spring came again. The bees woke up, and I kept going. This time, not for anyone else, just because it mattered.
I was holding a tray of cupcakes when my father said it. It was Ava's graduation party, my niece, the family golden girl. The backyard was strung with those little white lights, and the smell of pulled pork and beer drifted through the air. Everyone wore pastel, like we were all auditioning for the same Hallmark special. Ethan stood next to me, hands in his pockets, head low. My son, 16, tall, brilliant, quiet, always quiet. He was watching the string lights flicker across the pool when my dad raised a glass and said, "To our Ava, first full ride Ivy in the family. She's gonna make the Parkers proud." The Parkers, as if Ethan didn't share the name. I smiled. That's what I do at these things. Smile, nod, pretend it doesn't sting, play the we're all family game. I leaned in a few minutes later and asked gently, "Dad, does Ethan get a slice of the college fund too?" He didn't even look at me, just popped a bite of coleslaw into his mouth and said through the chew, "Why waste it on him?" Those 5 words split something clean in me, not because they surprised me, God, I wish they did, but because of how casually he said them, like they were fact, like it made perfect sense. Ethan being raised by a single mom, by me, meant he wasn't worth the investment. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice. I didn't even look at Ethan. I just turned back to the cupcakes, smiled like nothing happened. That night, Ethan didn't say a word. He just went up to his room and closed the door. When I passed by a few hours later, I heard him typing. Fast, focused. I didn't know it then, but that was the start of the speech. The speech that would wreck every comfortable lie this family built its image on. But before we get to that stage, to that microphone and that final line that made the entire room fall silent, you need to understand who Ethan is and who I had to become to raise him. My name is Lauren Parker. I'm a high school English teacher, a mother, a disappointment to my family, and apparently the reason my son is seen as a bad investment. When Ethan was born, I was 21 and fresh out of college with a baby and no ring. My ex, Brian, left the moment the stick turned pink. My family told me to take care of it. Their words, not mine. I didn't. I chose Ethan. And from that moment forward, I became an outsider in my own bloodline. They never said it directly. No one ever does in families like mine. Instead, it was the seating arrangements at holidays, the gift cards never arriving, the way everyone's tone dropped half a register when I walked in with him. Ethan didn't complain, not once. He read books before bedtime while I graded papers. He helped me clip coupons and check tire pressure. He grew up around whispered judgments and passive-aggressive family brunches, and he absorbed all of it, not as anger, but as fuel. By 14, he was tutoring his classmates. At 15, he won the statewide poetry competition. At 16, he started skipping family events without a word. No drama, no fight, just silence. But he always went to Ava's things. She was the cousin who had it all. Money, support, Instagram, congratulations from the entire family. She deserved it. Ethan never envied her, not once. He just watched. Until that party, until my father made it official. Ethan wasn't part of the real family, and something inside him changed. He started waking up earlier, staying up later, filling journals, submitting essays to contests, researching schools. He told me he was just keeping options open. He didn't say what I already knew. He was planning something, and he wasn't planning it for them. He was planning it for him, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit for me too. The week after that party, Ethan stopped speaking at dinner, not out of anger, just stopped. He ate in silence, journal always within reach. I caught glimpses of pages filled with scribbles and strike-throughs, phrases circled 3 times, quotes underlined. One line written over and over again in the margins. A family name doesn't guarantee a legacy. He didn't say where it came from. I didn't ask. At school, he started skipping lunch to meet with his English teacher, Mr. Alder. I ran into Alder in the teacher's lounge one day, and he pulled me aside. Your son, he said, has something rare. He doesn't just write. He bleeds onto the page. I blinked. That sounds painful. It is, Alder said. But it's beautiful, too. That night, I found an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was an official letter. Ethan had been nominated for the state valedictorian competition. I didn't even know there was such a thing. It meant he'd be eligible to speak at the joint district graduation, with thousands in the crowd, including students from Ava's school. I waited for him to bring it up. He didn't. Not for 2 days. Then, without looking up from his cereal, he said, "They picked me." Valedictorian, I smiled, put my hand over his. Of course they did. He hesitated. I don't think I want to say what they expect. Then don't, I said. Say what you need to say. He nodded but didn't smile. In the weeks that followed, the speech consumed him. He declined 2 scholarship interviews just to have more time. He stopped watching movies with me. I started leaving snacks outside his door like he was hibernating. Then one Friday, just as I was locking up my classroom, a student stopped by. You're Ethan's mom, right? I nodded. Your son's speech. It's all over the group chat. People are saying he's going to go off. Like really off, no filters. I felt a chill, not fear, just realization. He wasn't just writing, he was preparing for war. That weekend, I sent the family a polite email with Ethan's graduation details. Date, time, auditorium address. Not a single person replied, Instead, on Sunday, my sister Susan posted a photo of Ava in her cap and gown with the caption, "Proud beyond words. The Parker legacy continues." Legacy, right. I didn't show Ethan the post. I didn't need to. He saw it anyway. He came downstairs that night and asked, "Do you think they'll come?" I didn't lie. "No." He nodded like he'd already made peace with that. But I could see it, that small, quiet ache behind his eyes, the one I recognized because I'd carried it for years. Then he asked something else. "Would you be disappointed if I didn't thank them in the speech? Why would you thank someone who never saw you?" That was the first time I saw him smile in weeks. It didn't last long. Later that night, I passed by his room and saw his computer screen lit up with a single line at the top of the document. "You forgot me, but I remembered everything." I wanted to knock, to ask him not to go too far, but then I remembered what Mr. Alder said. Ethan bleeds onto the page. And when someone writes like that, you don't interrupt the surgery. 2 nights before graduation, he sat beside me on the porch. No laptop, no journal, just the stars. "You nervous?" I asked. He shook his head. "I thought I'd be angry," he said, "but I'm not." "What are you then?" "Done." He didn't say anything else, just reached over and squeezed my hand. There's a kind of silence that isn't empty. It's full of everything someone could say, but won't. That's the silence Ethan carried with him into the auditorium. And that's why what came next mattered more than any applause ever could. If this story is starting to hit home, if you've ever been the quiet one in a loud room, stick around. And if you like hearing stories like this, real ones where the truth doesn't flinch, subscribe. There's more to come. The morning of the graduation felt like waiting for a storm. Ethan came downstairs in his cap and gown. Navy blue, crisp, his posture straight, hands calm, eyes unreadable. He looked older than 17, older than most grown men I knew. "You look," I started. "Like someone who's already gone," he said. We drove in silence. The parking lot outside the auditorium was packed. Families hauling flowers and gift bags, younger siblings buzzing around in dresses and clip-ons. And then there was us. Just us. Until I saw the car. My father's. Of course. He brought them. Jason in his sunglasses. My sister Susan in her gold necklace with Ava's initials. My brother Tom with that same blank look he always wore when he didn't want to pick a side. They were all there. Third row, center, like they'd earned front seats to a story they never read. I didn't point them out to Ethan. He saw them anyway. He didn't flinch. Backstage, the coordinator handed him the printed version of the approved speech. He folded it once, then again, and quietly placed it in the trash. He pulled a small, worn journal from his coat pocket, flipped to a marked page. "I'm proud of you," I said. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. When his name was called, the auditorium clapped politely. When the principal read his GPA and scholarship list, there were scattered murmurs, a few gasps. He was the most awarded student in the district. I watched my sister's face shift. She didn't know half of it. Ethan walked to the mic, slow and sure, like he was counting every step. He didn't clear his throat or fidget. He opened his journal. He began. "At some point," he said, "you realize applause isn't always meant for you. Sometimes it's just habit. Sometimes it's noise. Today I'm not here for applause." The room stilled. Parents leaned forward. "I was told once," he continued, "that I wasn't worth the investment, that because I came from a single-parent home, I'd never amount to much, that I was a waste." A shifting, quiet but sharp. Heads turned. I saw Jason freeze. "I want to thank the people who didn't believe in me," Ethan said. "You taught me something invaluable. Silence has weight. And I carried it. Every ignored birthday, every missing seat at Thanksgiving, every time someone said, 'We're so proud of Ava,' and forgot I was in the room." Susan blinked. Tom leaned forward. My father didn't move. Ethan's voice didn't waver. "See, the funny thing about broken homes is they grow strong people. People who don't crumble just because the room goes quiet when they enter. People who learn to clap for themselves." Someone in the back let out a breath that sounded like a sob. "I wasn't raised on praise," I was raised on observation. I watched my mother work 2 jobs and still make time to read me poetry. I watched teachers look past me until I made them look twice. And I watched a family smile through gritted teeth while pretending I wasn't theirs. He paused and looked at them, directly. The third row didn't shift, didn't blink. It was like watching statues realize they were being painted. Ethan flipped a page. There's something powerful about being forgotten. It makes you remember everything. It makes you pay attention. And when the time comes, it makes you ready. He leaned slightly forward. His voice softened, but it cut deeper. Today, I speak not for the legacy I was denied, but for the one I'm building. I felt something burn behind my eyes. I'm not a side story. I'm not an exception. I'm not Ava's cousin or Lauren's kid or the one from the broken home. I'm Ethan Carter, full scholarship, published writer, son of a woman who gave me everything no one else would. The applause started too early. He raised a hand. It stopped. I'm not done, he said gently. And then the room froze. He looked down, took a breath, and said, to everyone who chose silence over support, don't worry, I heard you. And then, everything you built, your image, your comfort, your lie, it won't survive what comes next. A full second of stunned silence. 2, 3. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then the room exploded. Not polite, not restrained. Real. Roaring. Raw. The principal tried to step in. Too late. Teachers stood. Students screamed. Phones came out. People were already typing captions. But I only looked at the third row. My father was pale, still, his mouth tight. He looked like someone trying to remember a different version of events. One where Ethan didn't become this. Susan? She blinked, furiously, then glanced at Ava. Even she had her phone out, recording, smiling. Jason? He sat stone-faced, arms crossed. Good. Let him. After the speech, Ethan didn't wait for applause to fade. He stepped off that stage, walked down the side aisle, past rows of families clapping for someone they never really saw. He didn't look at them, not even once. I met him outside by the trees. He looked lighter, not joyful, not proud, just free. Ready to go? I asked. Yeah, he said, like he'd just finished something sacred. We drove home in silence again. This time it wasn't heavy, just quiet. The kind of quiet that follows storms, when all that's left is clean air and things that matter. The messages started an hour later. First one was from Susan. Wow, that was intense. Wish we'd had a heads up. Then Jason. Way to turn a graduation into a drama fest. Real mature. Then my father. Just 2 words. He's angry. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because this story was never about their comfort. That night, someone uploaded the full speech to YouTube. Within hours, it hit 100,000 views. The caption read, "Student destroys his family with graduation speech." Not what Ethan would have called it, but accurate. The next day, I found him in the kitchen, flipping pancakes like nothing had happened. You good? I asked. He shrugged. Yeah, better than I thought. And then, for the first time in days, he smiled. A real one. I got an email from the Northwestern rep. They saw the video. I froze. What did they say? They said they don't just want me as a student. They want me as a speaker for the freshman convocation. I had to sit down. That afternoon, he opened a letter from a small national foundation. They'd seen his writing portfolio. Someone had forwarded the speech to them. They offered him a full ride plus a mentorship grant. More money than the family fund ever promised. Funny how strangers can recognize value your own blood misses. 2 weeks later, we were packing for college. 2 duffel bags, 1 laptop, a journal, and a signed printout of the final draft of his speech, framed, sitting on top of everything else. I asked if he wanted to leave it behind. He shook his head. Not for them, he said. For me. The night before we left, we sat on the porch again. He asked, you think they'll talk to us again? I thought about it. They'll try, but not for the right reasons. He nodded slowly. Will you let them? I'll follow your lead, I said. He looked up at the stars. They didn't break me, you know. They tried, but they didn't. I know. Do you think they know now? Does it matter? He laughed just once, and it sounded like a beginning. When we got to the campus, he didn't want a long goodbye, just a hug, a long one. You did good, he said quietly. No, I replied. You did. And then he disappeared into the crowd of new lives, new people, new eyes that hadn't been trained to look through him. 3 months later, I got a letter in the mail from my father, just one page, handwritten, tight script, no greeting. Saw the speech again, didn't think he had it in him. Maybe I was wrong. Hope he's doing well. No apology, no ownership. Just that. I burned it, because this story doesn't need an ending written by someone who refused to be in the first chapter. That night Ethan called. He'd just finished speaking at his first university event. The room was packed. How'd it go? I asked. They clapped, he said, then paused. All of them, before I even finished. And then, after a beat, everything they built, it's gone, isn't it? I didn't answer right away, but I smiled. Yes, I said. Gone in 10 minutes. If you felt something during this story, if you've ever been erased, forgotten, underestimated, remember this. Truth doesn't need permission to be powerful. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. We don't just tell stories here. We make sure they're heard,